So Kuma's flashback is over and we finally return to Egghead in real time, and the wait was worth it because this chapter is a banger. So we're essentially returning back to where we left off from around, I think, chapter 195, where Saturn was holding up Bonney to be executed. And we see that the surrounding onlookers are trying to help, like the Straw Hats, the Vegapunks, but they can't move. There's like some kind of paralysis ability that Saturn seems to have on them. We also see Luffy is just gassed and essentially half conscious because he used Gear 5 against Kizaru. And he's asking for food, but he can't move, and neither can anyone else. Like even Atlas is like, I would give you some food, Luffy, but I can't move my body. Then we see that Sentomaru had been put in custody by the Marines as well, and it cuts to Kizaru, and we see that he's worried about both Sentomaru and Bonney. And this is the beginning of Kizaru's full turn, which is, obviously going to happen in this chapter. You read the title of the video and we'll get to that, but this is just the beginning of what's to come for Kizaru. This guy only has like 2 panels in the chapter, but they're so incredibly significant, it's wild. Then we come back to Bonney and she's trying to fight back against Saturn, and she goes into her distorted future Nika form. And she tries to like hit him in the head, but it just like ricochets off of him and does nothing. Like this is a pretty incredible display of power from Saturn. I mean, Bonnie's obviously not like that powerful, but I think it's just more so showing how powerful Saturn is. I mean, I guess like Kaido or Big Mom could have replicated this feat, and it's still really unsure how strong Saturn is exactly, especially considering what's going to happen at the end of this chapter, but I still think it's being implied here that he is one of the strongest characters we've ever seen, so far at least. But Saturn, of course, recognizes that she says Nika, and it angers him to an extent because, Nika is like the Celestial Dragon's Antichrist, but also I think it's implied that Saturn like knew the actual Nika, like back before the Void Century. Because before Kuma's flashback, when we saw Luffy falling, I think after he hit Kizaru and he was still in his Gear 5 form, Saturn looked at him and was like Nika, but it was like he was recognizing a person that he hadn't seen in a while. And we'll get back to that because he's going to explain like why Bonnie's power like isn't at its full strength because she doesn't know the real Nika. But speaking of Nika, we see Luffy now has food and he's consuming it unlike he has in a very long time. And he's just building up his strength again, of course, because, this is how Luffy works. And Saturn's confused. He's like, who gave him that food? Put sea stone cuffs on him immediately. And then we see the Marines like running after him. And the following panel is just Kizaru hunched up against a rock, not saying anything. Now this is it. In my opinion, this is the confirmation that Kizaru is for sure the one who gave Luffy the food. Now this also brings into question like, how does Saturn's paralysis ability work? Does it just affect everyone in the surrounding radius, or can he pick and choose who's affected by it? Or if you're just simply strong enough, you can like brute force through it, because Luffy is moving as well, even though he's gassed. But this is incredible because this is like Kizaru's full-blown face turn. And if you would have asked me like at the beginning of this arc when we first saw Kizaru and Saturn on the ship coming to Egghead, if he was going to turn face, probably would have been like, I don't think so. But now it's happened, and I think we will see Kizaru and Luffy team up to go against Saturn at some point, because Kizaru also wants to save Sentomaru and Bonney here, and it's very possible that he's drinking the Nika Kool-Aid as well, since he was doing the Nika dance in that flashback. So he realizes, oh, Luffy is like the Messiah, so I might as well just help him, since he's probably the only one who could save us all, not even just on Egghead, but in general in the world. Because Kizaru has said before, I'm just a cog in the machine or whatever, and he does want to help. He does want to conduct quote-unquote justice, but he's forced to conduct the psychotic justice that the Gorosei and Imu have forced upon him. And I've also talked about this before, but I think all of the admirals are going to turn face and help Luffy eventually as well. And I have a video coming out sometime next week where I talk about this with King of Lightning, Brago D-Ace, Parvision, and Sai, so look out for that. But back to Bonney and Saturn, because Bonney says, I can't even change Saturn's age, using her Devil Fruit ability on him. And this this could be for a few reasons. Either Saturn's haki is obviously just otherworldly and devil fruit abilities just don't affect him unless you're like a beast, or he has some kind of devil fruit nullifying ability as well. I mean, it's not unheard of. This is also a part of Blackbeard's devil fruit ability, but considering that Saturn can do so much, I mean, it's not unusual for a mythical zone, I guess, but it's possible that Saturn has conducted experiments on himself to augment or add abilities to him. Not really sure, of course, just guessing, but I say that because of what Saturn says next, because we get this huge twist reveal that he conducted experiments on Bonney when she was a baby, and that her powers, her HH fruit powers, were given to her because of extract infusions. So instead of feeding her a fruit, they like extracted the essence of the devil fruit and then gave it to her as she was a baby. And he says its ability can transform you into a state that matches any future perceived to be possible, and that it was a success, but the fruit itself is useless now, which I guess means like the actual tangible fruit that was left behind is just useless. I don't know if this means that the quote unquote devil fruit soul within it will pass on and reincarnate into another fruit if Bonney were to die. That remains to be seen, but I guess it just means that this is like a one-time thing. You can't just keep extracting the devil fruit power or whatever from the same fruit like multiple times. But he also explains that like if Bonney actually knew what Nika actually looked like, that her future distortion ability would be much stronger. Like she still hasn't figured out that Nika is essentially what Gear 5 Luffy is. So when she does her Nika-ish future, it's just not really that powerful, or as powerful as it could be. Then Saturn also says that Bonney's mother Ginny was brought to the Holy Land to be wife number 8. Now, I don't know exactly what that means. Now, does it mean that she is wife number 8 in general to the celestial dragons, or the 8th wife of Saturn? Like he has, 8 wives, and that he is the biological father of Bonney. It's not said in this chapter, but I guess this could be the implication of that, which is wild, and just makes Saturn maybe the most despicable villain in the series at this point. I mean, Doflamingo is pretty bad, but he doesn't have any confirmed cases of, stuff I can't say on YouTube. He just more so had implications of it, but this is straight up being confirmed that Saturn is, that type of guy. He also experimented on Ginny with drugs, and this is what led to her developing Sapphire Scale, which eventually passed on to Bonney. So yeah, I guess this finally confirms that Saturn is responsible for the Sapphire Scales. We knew that this was probably going to happen based off of the mythology that Oda was inspired by involving Saturn, and I guess this means that it doesn't directly come from like his devil fruit or being in contact with them. It's more so just him experimenting with the disease, or whatever he did developed the Sapphire Scale disease. But of course, it's coming full circle here because everything Kuma did was to save Bonney from the Sapphire Scales, which only came in the first place because of Saturn. So yeah, super despicable, one of the worst, and I'm sure the rest of the Gorosei, aside from one of them, are probably just as bad. There might be one Gorosei that is like a good guy and he's actually going to become a traitor to them, but that's a story for another time. Then Kuma lands back on Egghead. We kind of knew that he was coming here because like where else would he go, especially now that we got all of Kuma's backstory. So he was teleporting around after getting saved by the Revolutionary Army. He went to Mary Joab, like fought there for a little bit, then left. And now he's back here and he is on a warpath. He's getting shot at, but that is not stopping him. They're like shooting with rocket launchers and stuff. And he's just going after Saturn, trying to save Bonney. And as Bonnie's about to give up, Saturn like throws her to the ground. He's like, all right, I'll do it myself. And he's about to step on her. But Kuma comes in at the last second and blocks Saturn's foot claw strike thing with his back. Like, what a beast. Then he turns around, grabs Saturn's foot spike thing, and then cocks back this incredible punch that Saturn seems to be visibly worried about. And I think this is supposed to parallel the punch that Luffy gave to Charlos back in Sabaody. And that's very likely the reaction that we're going to see here. Like in the next chapter, for sure, Kuma is going to land this punch on Saturn because we need to have some kind of catharsis here. Now, how much damage can Kuma actually do to Saturn? Well, it remains to be seen because he does have haki. Like, he is coating his fist here in armament. And it's like, how much cognizance does he actually have? Because the implication is that he's like a full-blown android, or just he no longer has consciousness at this point. But there is obviously something. Maybe it can do with his soul, maybe, you know, something like that. But it also is like, how strong is Kuma to be able to fight against Saturn like this? And I know he does have like the father saving the daughter, coming back from a flashback plot power up on his side, but still, I'm thinking we're going to see some Saturn stocks lower in the next chapter, but I don't think it'll be the end for him. He'll probably wind up killing Kuma, and then we'll see, I don't know, Bonney, Kizaru, and Luffy take on Saturn or something like that. But yeah, great chapter here. Let me know what you think about it in the comments, and if you liked it, please give it a like, please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.